James 5:16. Therefore confess your sins to each other and pray for each other so that you may be healed. The prayer of a righteous person is powerful and effective. Good day, everybody. I'm off to, of course, Think Orange. Getting some food first on the way. I've had a slightly eventful day. I received a phone call from someone at Subway, which I applied to a few weeks ago. I applied for a manager position. Could have applied for a crew member position, but I decided to go manager because I could get it probably. I wasn't crazy about doing that because I've been trying to break out of food service, but I need a job, so so it was the location in Uptown Altamont. It's right over next to I-4, by Cranes Roost Park, across from the Dollar Theater. It's also where I went on my very first ever date, a blind date that I was set up on. Was at that Subway. So yeah, I got an interview tomorrow afternoon, so trying to figure out how badly I want to keep certain times available, like Wednesday night, for the next 4 weeks, or tonight's 1 week, so for 3 weeks Wednesday nights would be out ideally. But do I bring that up, or do I hope for the best, or do I not? Also keeping Sundays, but also wanting to keep Tuesday nights, so which is more important? Or do I put them both on even playing field and say I can work, I go to church on Sunday morning and Tuesday night, and I'd like to keep both I'd like to keep both free to do that, but as long as I'm able to go to one that week, I'd be alright. So leave it up to a Sunday morning, Tuesday night juggling act type of thing with what they would prefer. I don't know, although ideally I wouldn't want to completely cut one out. I'd like to be able to go to both and just like bounce back and forth between the two or something. I don't know. And then of course Saturday morning I want to keep open because I've been volunteering at the library and I want to see if anything else can happen there. So yeah, so I'm hungry. It's 5:37, so I'm gonna go over, get some food at the Bell. I'll most likely be eating at Subway tomorrow because I'll be there, so I might as well. At any rate, I'm gonna go in and get some food, and I'll catch up with you guys probably after Orange. We'll see. Alright, today was an interesting day, to say the least. It rained, first of all, so the ground, like while it was going on, it did stop, but the ground was too wet. I didn't want to bring them outside and that, so we didn't come outside. We didn't have our normal room because there's something special going on at the church, and yeah, and so we had to go somewhere else. And so I was planning on popping into one of the preschool rooms, but then Heather had their group in the preschool room that I was going to use, and so I had to go to a different room. We didn't have any chairs, and so I had to spend more time than I usually do in small group, stretch it out to fill in the time and kind of make it a little more interesting and active, while still being stuck indoors. And they weren't listening at the time because they were just like walking over to each other and talking to like face to face and ignoring me and things like that, instead of sitting in their chairs. And they sit in their chair, they've got their border there, the chair is there, that's their border, they stay in their own space. No chairs, it's amazing what they'll do, even as old as they are. Some of them are. No big deal though. So I'm gonna go home as soon as Heather gets back and watch Survivor and Arrow. So yeah, that's what we'll do next. Catch you in a bit. Well, that was interesting. I just got done watching Arrow. I'm gonna go into my room. Yeah. So, I got back. First things first, I came back home, watched Survivor. Another episode, another thing. Something happened that needed to happen and was bound to happen. Basically, I'm trying to set up my setup. And so the interesting thing was that a decision was made that didn't necessarily make all the best sense in the world, and was actually probably a little bit more emotionally based. Something that I thought that this group of people, particular group of people on Survivor, weren't gonna let be the case, because amazingly, they've stuck by plan. The plan. Most of the time, they stick by the plan, regardless of how they feel, which is neither good nor bad, just the situation, whatever it calls for. I'm okay with what happened, I think. And then I came back here. First, I watched the rest of what I started last night, but I was too tired and I just zonked out. So yesterday was The Flash. I believe I talked about that. I did talk about that. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I watched next when I got back here. Just briefly, I'll say that it tied into, and I may have already talked about it. I don't remember what I talked about yesterday, to be honest, but it did tie into the Avengers. They made lots of references back to it. Anyway, other thing that I watched, that I taped, that I watched half of last night and was like falling asleep, so I finished it tonight, was E60 on ESPN. It's a special show where they go behind the scenes, or behind the curtain in this case, and they went to WWE, specifically to NXT, which is here in Orlando, and they looked specifically not just at that brand, but at three specific people who were part of that brand, and I thought it was just really interesting. And they made three good choices, I thought, that they were different enough to where you could appreciate that they weren't just throwing three of the same stories out there. One was a slightly older guy who's been around for a while in the developmental system, and he went with a different character for the longest time and could not get this character over. So he switches characters to someone who does get over and eventually gets called up to the main roster. The second guy they talked to is someone who'd been around for a little while, but his story is that he kept taking classes and he's working towards getting his PhD while wrestling. And so they talked to him for a little while and just showed his story, and then how he eventually got called up to the main roster as well. The third guy was someone who's wrestling fan all of his life. Started wrestling very young and went through the process and everything. Gets to the big time, WWE, NXT, called up. But he has concussions happening too much, and so eventually gets to the point where he can't safely keep wrestling because he's had so many concussions. So he transitions from a wrestler to an announcer, and now he's announcing NXT and also hosting a couple of shows that are on the WWE network. So three very cool stories. So if you ever happen to be watching East 60 on ESPN and you see the one about the wrestling, about WWE, NXT, check it out. If you're curious in living in the least, even if you don't like it and you just want to understand maybe why it has a draw, because to you it doesn't, this is a really good thing to look at and try to understand. See three stories of three people that live their lives in this world, in this realm, and just the fallout, and they showed their families and struggles they had to deal with their families, situations and stuff like that too. So it was just really cool. Tonight, talked about Survivor already. Okay, let's shift to what I just finished watching, which is Arrow. Wow, this show just is so great, done so well. Um, I just wish it could connect to the cinematic universe for DC, because it's, like I said, it's just done so well. Um, this episode sees Oliver in his role as the heir to Ra's al Ghul, the head of the League of Assassins, which he doesn't want to do, and he's trying to get out of it, but he's really being forced into this against his will, based on a number of situations and circumstances. It sees him take this, which has been the last couple episodes, going a little bit further, a little bit further, a little bit further. He takes it even further this episode, and I like that they were careful enough to not take away from the ending of the episode with what happened, or at least what seemed to happen, that I cannot believe actually does happen. But they were careful with their preview of the next episode to not necessarily give away whether or not something did or didn't happen. Theoretically, there's going to be a appearance of the Flash in the next episode, and I also know that Arrow, Oliver Queen, or El Sahid, not wearing the Arrow gear, not the green, he's wearing the League of Assassins gear, is going to be on the next Flash as well. So another crossover, and I like that they do that. And I wish that they wouldn't mess the Flash up, because messing the Flash up makes it so they can't really bring in this Arrow character, because they're connecting Arrow and Flash together. So the fact that we're going to have a different Flash means we can't have this Arrow in the movies either, even though it would be great. That's me being frustrated with DC's choices that haven't even been seen yet. So who knows? Maybe it'll be great. Maybe they'll explain it, make sense. Maybe not. We'll see. That's what I watched, then I came in here. So I'm going to close out the vlog here. I think it's gone on long enough. I'm probably over 10 minutes now. So for myself and my pals here. Oh, one more thing. Survivor, back to Survivor for a second. Not the episode, but next season. They touched on it a little bit earlier. Usually they tell what's going to happen next season at the end of the finale of the season that's going on. This time they did it now. We just had elimination, leaving 6 players left in the game. They told us when the finale is going to be, May 20th. And we have from today until May 20th to look on their website and vote 10 men and 10 women onto the show from a list of maybe 16 men and 16 women, 18. I'm not exact. I didn't count exactly how many. So you go to the website, you vote for 10 women, then you vote for 10 men that you want to see come back. They're returning players, which is the thing that bothers me, but they're not a lot of big name, wow, we want to see them back. It is truly a, you may not even remember this person type thing. There were only a few that I did remember. There was one of the men that I was like, yes, I was totally rooting for him like the whole time when he was on his season. So I want to see him back because he's a smart player. But put that aside, and I already said for the yeah, you know the drill. Good night, everyone, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.